Hello, welcome to vlog number 11. In this one I'll talk about what I'm working on at the moment, some changes that I've made recently to my workshop, a lathe that I've recently acquired, some new Milwaukee tools including a table saw, and finally tool talk where I'll cover some other new tools. As usual, the timings for each section of the video are on screen now if you want to skip to the bits that you're interested in. Work in progress. I've recently finished a coffee table with a hidden drawer. That was a gift for my mum and dad. That was made of beech and some offcuts of birch plywood, and in that one I had to match the colour of the coffee table to some existing furniture in their living room, but I had to do that kind of from memory, obviously, because I couldn't go and visit them due to social distancing. That will be a future project video. I've just finished making some coasters. They were made from wood salvaged from some old hardwood cupboard doors from the renovations that we're doing to our bungalow. That will be a future project video too. I've also made a desk with a shelf and some hairpin legs as a commission. That was made from some salvaged scaffold boards, and as always with that kind of project, the biggest challenge was getting the boards straight. I left the boards indoors for 2 weeks to dry them out, but still, after planing and sanding them and joining them together, it still developed a bit of a twist, and that's why I really don't like making that style of furniture anymore. But anyway, it all helps to pay the bills. The finish I used for that one was a mixture of dark oak stain, white spirit, and a bit of shellac in roughly equal measures, which I wiped on to get the colour, and then I did a couple of coats of water-based varnish to make it more hard wearing, and then I used some clear bry wax rubbed on with some 4/0 steel wool to flatten the finish to get it more of a matte finish. I didn't film that project, and that's why I'm telling you so much about it now, mainly because I wanted to get it done quickly, but also because I've already done another project similar to that one, which is already on the channel, and I'll link to that in the description box below if you're interested. A few months back I repaired and refinished a coffee table for a friend of mine, and I haven't got around to editing the video for that one yet, so that might be a future video, I'm not sure yet. I also made a quick coat rack just because I found these lovely solid brass hooks in my box of salvaged hooks, and I put them onto a nice piece of salvaged oak, and that's now available for sale via my Etsy store if anyone's interested. Link to that below too. I've also just filmed a video about tips and advice for makers on YouTube, because it's a question I get asked a lot, so I thought why not talk about everything I know and have learned over the last 5 years or so about being a maker on YouTube, put it all into one video. Little did I know that that video would end up being about 20 minutes long, so now I'm just in the process of trying to slim it down a little to make it less long. So yeah, lots going on as always. Workshop changes. A few months back, shortly after I'd moved into this new workshop, I started insulating the walls, and I did about 70% of them and then stopped, partly because I kind of ran out of enthusiasm and got a bit bored of it. But also I wasn't really sure how I would use the rest of the space in the workshop. The recent self-isolation measures has resulted in me being at home more, even though I'm still working my day job. But I thought now was as good a time as any to crack on with it, and a few months ago I managed to get some second-hand kitchen wall cabinets for free via Facebook Marketplace, and I knew they would be really handy for some extra storage space in the workshop. And you might remember that I had a large window in the wall that I didn't originally get around to insulating. As you can see, that is no longer there anymore. Well, it is there, but it's hidden. So I started building some frames using whatever 2x2s and 2x3s that I had available in the workshop, and basically followed the same process as before, stapling on some plastic sheeting to the back of the frames, which will help to hold the insulation in place, because I wanted an air gap between the frame and the block wall. I could then secure it to the floor using my SDS drill and some concrete Torx screws. I also secured the frames to the pillars on either side, and then I added some 50mm rock wool insulation. Then I could clad the frame with whatever dirty, nasty looking scraps of plywood, MDF or OSB I could find. I didn't want to waste any nice bits on this because it's all going to get painted anyway. So yeah, the large window had to go because A, it's broken, B, natural light is a nightmare to deal with when you're trying to film video, and C, extra wall space inside a workshop is always useful. I'm not sure what to do with that window as far as the outside is concerned. This is how it looks at the moment. You can just about see the plastic on the back of the wall frames that I've installed, but it doesn't look too bad. In fact, it doesn't really look any different to how it looked before. I could then install the kitchen cabinets, and for that I used my new self-leveling laser from Kapro, which I'll talk about later in the video. It has magnets on the back, so I could just mount it onto my metal cabinets on the opposite wall. Then I could install these metal mounting plates to the studs in the wall. And then the cabinets just hook onto them, and on the inside of the cabinets there are some adjustment screws to pull them tight to the mounting plates. Because the cabinets were second-hand, some of them had bits missing and bits broken, so one of the cabinets that I got became a donor cabinet which I could use for spare parts for the cabinets that I actually wanted to use. Above the cabinets I decided to install some more twin slot shelving uprights and brackets so that I can store some more timber up there, because I've had nothing but good experiences with using this for storing timber so far, as you might remember from a previous video on my channel which I'll link to in the description box. And then finally I painted everything with a couple of coats of white emulsion and caulked all of the gaps in the walls and painted those too. I also removed a couple of box sections from this metal shelving unit that I had in the workshop so that it would fit underneath the cabinets and take up less floor space. Unfortunately though, I ran out of framing timber eventually and I still have one section of wall left to do. That wall will have to wait until lockdown is over. I got a lathe! I had a call from my uncle a couple of weeks back asking if I wanted a lathe that he had in storage. It's funny as it happened just after I answered a question in a recent Q&A video about why I didn't have a lathe. So of course I said yes, and here it is. It's branded Kinzo, and from what I can work out, I believe it's an older version of the same ones that are made now, branded as Sealy, model number SM1308. It's the perfect size for me because I wanted one that I could use to turn things like dining table legs on, and this one has a capacity of 1000 millimeters, so that's good. But there are a few issues with it. First, aesthetically, it has quite a lot of flaky paint and rust because it's been stored in a shed for many years, but that's easy enough to clean up and repaint. But the main issue is the lack of tool rest and I believe what is known as a banjo, which is the adjustable part that holds the tool rest and slides along these bars. It looks like replacements are available to buy via Sealy though, but I'm not 100% sure if they would fit this Kinzo model, so if anyone knows, I'd really appreciate it if you could let me know. I'm also considering making something using a combination of wood and metal, which could be an interesting project, but it'd need to be pretty solid for it to work as a tool rest. Any ideas or suggestions gratefully received. Another drawback is that everything is adjusted via nuts and bolts, so there are no quick release levers or anything like that. But again, I think I can probably make some wooden levers to fit over the bolts, just so that I don't have to keep getting my spanners out to make adjustments each time. The headstock has what I believe is called a spur center, and the tailstock has what I believe is called a pointy thing. You'll have to excuse me, I'm new to all this. The two pointy bits do seem to be reasonably well aligned, not perfect, but I should imagine it's good enough. I thought I'd plug it in just to see if it works. I also tried mounting a piece of wood. And it seemed to work just fine, although I did notice that when tensioning the tailstock, the bottom frame of the lathe completely distorted. You can probably see it moving here. Maybe I'm over tensioning it, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's not meant to do that. Again, I can probably resolve that issue by clamping it down or perhaps even bolting it down to a flat surface. There's no chuck with it, so I assume I'd need one of those in order to turn things like bowls on it, but I don't really know how to identify what chucks would be compatible with this model. I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas on this. Is this lathe worth spending money on and saving? I know it's not a particularly high-end one or anything, but I figured it'd be good as a beginner one just to get me started at least. Milwaukee Tools. Recently, someone working on behalf of Milwaukee got in touch with me to ask if there were any tools I'd like to try out in my videos. I'd never tried or used any of their tools before, and after having a look at their range of tools online, which by the way was really impressive, they have a really good range of tools in their cordless range particularly. Anyway, there were a few tools that immediately sprung to mind that I was keen to try out. The first was their cordless battery operated table saw, the M18 FTS 210, which is similar to my existing saw, but it has some extra features and it's also far less offensive to the ears. With its brushless motor, it's much quieter than the DeWalt. I'll probably make a video about my more detailed thoughts and opinions on it once I've used it for a few months, but the first impressions so far are good. I was particularly impressed by the lack of setup needed. I did my usual table saw accuracy checks, which I've detailed in a previous video. I'll link to that below if you want to check it out. But yeah, right out of the box, the blade was perfectly well aligned to the mitre slots, so no adjustments needed there. I checked the table for flatness and it wasn't perfect from front to back, but it was a bit better than my DeWalt, and from left to right it was spot on, and that's the most important part really. The mitre gauge fitted the mitre slots perfectly with no side to side movement. No, I'm joking, I packed it out with some gaffer tape. I could use that mitre gauge to check the fence alignment and it was spot on with a slight runoff at the back, which is important and typical for safety so that the workpiece doesn't get snagged on its way through. The fence was square to the table, and I also set up the fence to cut to 100mm, cut a scrap piece of MDF, and that too was perfect, no adjustments needed. Oh, actually there was one adjustment needed, and that was just to tweak the bolts in the insert plate to get it flush with the table, but aside from that everything was good. I needed to make a few adjustments to my existing mobile table saw stand, and now it's all set up and ready to use from now on. The other tools I asked Milwaukee to try out were their 12-volt drill and impact driver set. I've been wanting to try some 12-volt tools for a while because I've heard they were lighter, more compact and quieter to use, and I've found that to be true. I'm trying to think of a situation where I've reached for my 36-volt drill and drivers since getting these, and I don't think I've reached for them at all. These have been plenty powerful enough for everything I've needed them for recently, for the kind of work that I do anyway, which is workshop-based stuff. And they're just nicer to use because they're smaller, quieter and lighter. So yeah, I'm happy with those. That was all I asked for, but Milwaukee also offered to send me their new 18-volt trim router to try out, and I wasn't exactly going to say no to that, so I look forward to trying that out too. And that came along with some really nice accessories, including a plunge base and an offset base. I haven't yet used it, but I'm sure I'll probably let you know my thoughts on it at some point in future. Tool talk. As if I haven't talked enough about tools in this video already, here are some more. Rollins Group got in touch with me about trying some of their products by Kapro and Pony Jorgensen. I was particularly excited about the Kapro range of tools because my old spirit level, which is this one here, is now so far off level that I'd probably be better off leveling things just by eye, so that's going in the bin now. I'd like to say it had served me well, but I'd be lying. I now have a selection of very nice Kapro spirit levels which I've tested, and they are very accurate, and also a self-leveling laser level which featured earlier in the video when I was installing the kitchen cabinets. That's already proved useful not only for stuff in the workshop but also for some of the house renovation stuff that we'll be doing in future. It's one of those tools that I've always wanted to buy, but I could never justify buying one because it's not that often that I need one. And then there's this selection of Pony Jorgensen clamps, and I've only ever used cheap clamps. Most of my old clamps are the cheapest that money can buy, and these ones are a real step up in quality. In particular, the parallel clamps, which I've used a lot since getting them, they are really smooth and much less clunky and awkward to use than the Dakota ones that I bought. That's not to say that the Dakota ones are rubbish, they're okay for the money really, but they're not really in the same league. By the way, I'm under no obligation to talk about these tools or anything. I just wanted to introduce them to you really, just so you know where they came from. And I'll leave a link to the Rollins Group in the description box if you want to check out their products. And if anyone from Rollins is watching, thank you, I appreciate it. And a company called Abracs, who specialise in abrasives and consumables, got in touch too and sent me a selection of things I use frequently, such as sanding belts, a hole saw set which I really needed because someone borrowed mine and it's now disappeared, so a reminder never to lend your tools to anyone. A selection of multi-tool and blades that I can use in my table saw and my mitre saw. A selection of spade, auger and drill bits. Angle grinder flap discs. Some jigsaw blades. And something else that I was in desperate need of, some new impact driver bits, as the DeWalt set I bought a couple of years back, I've now broken every one of the Posi Drive size 2 bits, so this came at the perfect time really. And finally some wet and dry paper, which as you probably know I use all the time. Again, I'm under no obligation to talk about any of these products, but I'll leave a link below to the Abracs website if you want to check out their range of products. And I'd like to say thank you to Abracs for sending me all these goodies. They've already proved useful, and opening the box, it was like Christmas Day. I think that's all I've got for now. Apologies if this vlog seemed a little bit too tool heavy. Let me know in the comments if that's what you think, and I'll try and mix up the next vlog a little bit. Please subscribe to my channel for more weekly woodworking videos. You can also support the channel via Patreon or PayPal if you want to, and there'll be links below in the description box for that. On Patreon, you can also get early access to my videos, some exclusive content, free project plans and cut lists, and a name credit at the end of my videos. Thank you for watching.